Hello, everyone. It is so nice to be here today to talk with you all. We want to thank the Millennium Campus Network team for inviting us and Adrija for being our liaison. And we are very much looking forward to talking about the principles of storytelling today and what that could mean for you as individuals, your organizations, if you are part of an outside group or movement, or the beneficiaries of the organization that you are writing about. Let me just pause for a minute because I still see that there's some people waiting to get in. And Adrija, just let me know if you think it's good to continue. Still see some people in the waiting room here.
I think we are good to go now.
Awesome. Okay. Thanks so much again. So let's go over the agenda for the day. And Juliana, just let's make sure that we got the presentation up and running.
Okay, can everyone see it?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Excellent. So first, we're going to go over the introductions. I'm sorry. We're going to go over the agenda for the day, and we'll talk first. We'll talk about. We did some greetings. We'll do some introductions. Then we'll talk about how to get visibility in a polycrisis. We'll talk about the history of storytelling. We'll talk about how to connect to the SDGs, and I know that so many of you are working on things related to the SDGs. We'll talk about the benefits of the editorial calendar. What to write about. That's always a very popular one because people a lot of times are confused about, they want to do some writing, but they're not exactly sure what to write about. And then we'll have a workshop. And in this section, we'll actually break into groups and try to brainstorm some ideas based on what you learned from the first few sections of the seminar. Then we'll have some feedback and discussion, and some of you will share those ideas that you come up with. We'll have a conclusion and wrap up, and then we'll all have a big celebration and be very happy. So first, let's do the introductions. Let's get a chance to meet each other. And I'd love to go around the room and can't introduce everybody with more than 100 people in the room here, but let's have some volunteers and just give us four things. Tell us your name, your home country, a one-sentence bio, and your favorite sports team. And if you hate sports, that's okay. Then just give us your favorite movie instead. And if there are any Millennium Fellows who would like to introduce themselves in their project after that, we'll do so. And I'll start. And then after I go, we'll get some volunteers. And then Juliana, whom you will meet in a minute, will also give some shout outs to those of you in the chat. So please, everyone, introduce yourselves to us in the chat at least and tell us who you are, where you're from. And then we'll come back and meet a few of you after myself and Juliana introduce ourselves. So my name is Lance Gould. I'm from New York. A true New Yorker would say New York. And I've lived in New York, New Jersey, or Boston my whole life. Work-wise, I was executive editor at Huffington Post, an outlet some of you might know, for 7 years. And then 8 years ago, I started Brooklyn Story Lab to put the focus on storytelling for social good so that purpose-driven organizations could get a visibility boost. Last, my favorite sports team is the Philadelphia 76ers basketball team featuring Joel Embiid from Cameroon. Now let's hear from Juliana, and then we'll meet some folks from the program.
Hi, my name is Juliana. I'm from Southern California. I'm a recent grad from California State University, Fullerton. And this past summer, I did an internship with a press agency out of the UN, and now I'm an intern for Brooklyn Story Lab. I don't really have a favorite sports team, but I did used to play volleyball, so I'm just gonna go with USA volleyball team because I like watching them.
Awesome. And now, do we have any volunteers who want to turn on your mics and just let's get about 7 or 8 people from around the room.
So my name is Ryan Hafidan. I'm from Libya. I live in a small town called Tarhuna. A short bio about me. I used not to live here. I was raised and born in Serbia. And when I came back to Libya, I saw 2 different communities. I saw the struggle within my community, and I'm so passionate in desertification and climate change, and also in medicine as a medical student in my 3rd year. I would say I'm not so much into sports, but my favorite movie, I'm a big Marvel fan, so I would say any Marvel movie.
Amazing. Thank you, Rayan.
Thanks so much, Ryan. I think the next hand I saw was for Devansh. Devansh, do you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. Good evening, fellas. My name is Devansh Pandey. I'm from New Delhi, India. Right now, I'm pursuing electrical engineering. Besides, there's a long list of movies and books that I love. If it comes to books, certainly there would be novels. Um, Recently, I read White Nights by Fyodor Dostoevsky, so maybe I can list that. And when it comes to movies, there's even a longer list for that. But at the moment, I think I can remember Schindler's List.
Okay, thanks.
Excellent. Thank you, Devansh.
I think the next hand was Mohammed Yahya. Are you able to unmute and speak?
Hi, my name is Mohammad Yahya, and I'm from Pakistan. I'm a medical student in Avicenna Medical College, University of Health Sciences, and I'm working on mental health project to eliminate the taboo in our society about the mental health. My favorite movie is Red, White, and Royal Blue. So it's
Such a sweet
and
movie.
yeah, it's an odd thing to say, and that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you, Mohammed. And I'd love for all of you to stay in touch with us. And Mohammed, I'd love to hear more about your mental health project because we're working on something with mental health here in the US with college students. So let's stay in touch on that. Find me on LinkedIn. All of you feel free to do so. But thank you for that.
Hey, I think Deng is next. Deng, are you able to unmute and speak?
Yeah, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. My name is Deng, Mayan Deng. I'm from South Sudan, and I'm studying software engineering at African Leadership University in Rwanda. And actually, I don't like sport, and I like games. And my favorite game is chess. I'm good at chess. And the project I'm working on is a mentorship application that is going to base in Africa, like kind of like connecting the universities in Africa. Thank you.
Fantastic. All right, let's do two more and then we'll get started.
Amazing. I think I saw Ayushi. Her hand was raised. Ayushi, do you want to unmute and speak?
Hi, am I visible?
Yes.
All right. So I'm Ayushi Singh. I'm from Delhi, India, and I'm pursuing English honors at Delhi University. One thing about me is that I'm an only child, a bit of a control freak, and I love and I love I don't know, I love symmetry. I love putting things together. I like looking at beautiful things. So the project that I'm working on deals with sustainable fashion. It targets SDG 12, responsible consumption and production. And I'm a huge movie nerd, so this one's a hard pick for me. But I think I'm gonna go with like my recent favorite movie. I would say I love Past Lives. Thank you.
Which one?
Past Lives, the recent Celine Song movie.
Oh, great, great.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Ayushi. I think one more. I see
One more.
I think Martha's hand is up. Martha, do you want to unmute and speak? You're able to.
Yes, how are you? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. My name is Martha Magio. I come from Kenya. I'm a community health student at Ambrose International University, passionate about primary health care and improving access to essential services for underserved communities. My favorite sports team is Arsenal.
Arsenal. Okay. All right. Juliana, do you want to just take a look through the chat and just give us tell us some places where people are from and things of that nature?
Yeah, I'm seeing Nigeria, Yemen, Pakistan, some people from the US, South Africa.
And what are people listing teams and movies?
There's universities. Oh, I'm seeing Bangladesh. People aren't really listing movies from what I can see.
Okay.
I'm seeing different
Excellent. All right.
colleges.
That's fantastic. Well, I mean, we've got South Sudan and Rwanda and Nigeria represented, Pakistan and India. You know, look like we have people from all over the world. So we're really, really excited to be here today. And so let's get started. We're going to start with getting visibility in a polycrisis. So just wait. There we go. So we're currently in what experts refer to as the decade of action. We have less than 5 years until we reach the year 2030, a deadline imposed by scientists who concluded that if humanity doesn't make dramatic changes to our ways of life by then, we may face irreversible negative consequences to our planetary home. It's a worrisome existential thought and one that requires us all to take dramatic action. And it's a thought that screams out for good examples of what others are doing to take leadership in this arena. That opens the door for you or your organization to tell your story about the important work that you're doing in these times of great crisis. And speaking of crises, we're currently facing an unprecedented confluence of crises, what some have referred to as the 3 Cs. The first C is the climate emergency. And I think we're all pretty familiar with that. We have COP30 coming up, and there's no end of discussions we can have about the climate emergency. The next C would be the international COVID crisis, which is no longer an international pandemic, but it's still a significant and persistent threat to public health. And I would think that in terms of what we're talking about with the 3 Cs, COVID is also a stand-in for other health crises that are permeating the planet. We're starting to see a resurgence in measles and other diseases that are not getting the requisite attention that they should. So I know that some of you, I think the very first person who spoke from Libya is a medical student, so I think she could probably talk a little bit more about that. And then the third C is conflict, which is manifest both in the ongoing Russian invasion of Ukraine and now a tenuous peace in the Middle East. And in the US, we have the plague of guns and violence, which is not unique to the United States, although it is somewhat unique to the United States. And globally, the terribly unequal societies in which race and gender and religion play an outsized role in determining who are the haves and the have-nots. So in other words, there is great pain and despair in the world, but that there's also great comfort that comes from learning about how heroes are tackling the problematic issues that we face. And that, again, creates an opportunity for you and your social good-minded organization. If you're not part of an organization, it still provides an opportunity for you to tell a great story. Another opportunity to tell a great story is, what are the news stories that make you upset? Whatever makes you angry or catalyzes other emotions, those are opportunities to correct a wrong. And those are also opportunities to tell a story about those on the wrong side of injustice and whose story deserves to be told. So the best way to use that opportunity to position yourself as a thought leader or a person with valuable perspectives is to disseminate your message through storytelling. You can, of course, put out a press release. That's always a reliable tool for what they call earned media coverage. In other words, reaching journalists who could cover your story. But at Brooklyn Story Lab, we teach individuals and purpose-driven organizations how to think and behave like media companies, because all of us on this call, all of us as individuals and as organizations, we're all media companies at the end of the day, so that you could tell your own story too. Because as I just said, because all of us in that context are media companies, but not everyone has the skill set or the capacity to tell or amplify those stories. So in the time we have today, we'll give a few quick pointers on storytelling. We'll also discuss how the calendar can become your best friend and what the differences are between heroes and wizards. So we'll take a pause here and see if anybody has any questions so far before we get into the first true section, which is the history of storytelling. We'll take 1 or 2 questions at this point, if there are any. I see a hand up from Joyce. Joyce, do you want to unmute? Joyce, do you want to go ahead? Maybe she took her hand down. Anybody else have a question? Otherwise, we'll just move right into the next section. All right, let's move into the next section, and then we can save questions for the next section. Now we're going to talk about the history of storytelling. Stories predate written history. Before there was writing, storytelling was an oral tradition that captured individual heroics or passed important lessons down to other members of a community. Think of Homer and other oral storytellers. According to some scholars, based on what they know about indigenous cultures, stories in part assisted with the indoctrination of younger members of tribes by having them tell in their own words the history of that tribe. So in essence, storytelling was a key part of establishing and maintaining community and was important to the very survival of the tribe by codifying traditions and behaviors. I like Joseph's reaction to that one going by. Storytelling developed from there into a fairly reliable, easy to remember formula, road tested over thousands of years from pre-verbal societies, think of cave paintings, to epic poem song cycles, such as Homer's Iliad and the Odyssey, which we just referred to novels and movies. And we, of course, talked about some of our favorite movies when we first got together on this call today. So the formula for that storytelling, the storytelling formula is hero, conflict, resolution, transformation. That formula must include a transformation in the hero to qualify as a quote unquote story. In a traditional comedy, a couple gets married. That's going back to the Shakespeare times. In every Shakespeare comedy, it always ends in a marriage. In a traditional tragedy, someone dies. But in all true stories, you see a transformation of the hero. An adolescent becomes an adult, a rookie becomes a veteran, a weakling becomes a person of courage. But if there's no transformation, it's not really a story per se. It's just Tuesday, or it's just Thursday today, in this case. Many times in these stories, the hero will get some unsolicited advice from a mystical figure. That mystical figure, we'll call them the wizard, will give cryptic advice to the hero, but won't drag the hero over the finish line. The hero must do that themselves. So we think of some examples from Hollywood. Dumbledore in the Harry Potter series, with Harry being the hero and Dumbledore is giving the advice as the wizard. Or Mr. Miyagi in The Karate Kid. I'm not sure how many people here have seen that one, but that's always a classic. And then, of course, I'm sure most people have seen this one, Yoda for Luke Skywalker in the Star Wars series. So Yoda is the wizard. Mr. Miyagi is the wizard. This is important. When you are telling a story, if you are part of an organization, that organization should never be the hero. When your organization is the hero, the story becomes PR. But when your organization is the wizard, helping the hero over the finish line, like Yoda does, like Dumbledore does, like Mr. Miyagi does. And remember, those wizards, and we're using wizard as a term here, those wizards never say, oh, go left, turn right, go left. That's how you get over the finish line. They give them cryptic advice, so they have to get over the finish line themselves. They have to learn how to do it themselves, but they get help from the wizard. When your organization is the hero, the story becomes PR. But when your organization is the wizard, helping the hero over the finish line, then you have a story that will be of potential interest to content consumers, one that could go viral. Now we're going to talk about examples of that in the advertising world. Most companies understand the importance of being the wizard, not the hero. When you look at the most successful advertising campaigns of the last half century, brands look at the customer as the hero, while the brands, are the wizard. So one example would be, and this is just a 4-word story, have it your way. Burger King invites you to have it your way at their restaurants. You are the hero. They will help you transform into dining royalty. They're not saying our burgers are great. The focus is on you, the customer. Let's go to the next one. In a 3-word story, Nike positions you as the hero. Their shoes and apparel will help transform you into the athlete you want to be. Just do it. And let me make a note. These are not endorsements of Burger King or Nike. These are just examples from the corporate world of how the recognition I see. I like the emojis flying by, the laughing emojis. There's what we're saying here. Good one, Rasan. What we're saying here is not that we're endorsing Nike or endorsing Burger King, but we're showing how they recognize the importance of the recognizing that the customer is the hero and that they are the wizard in this formula. After Nike, let's talk about another one. This is a political brand. It's another kind of brand. Obama, when he ran for president of the United States, his very famous 2008 campaign slogan was three-word story, yes, we can. He was not saying, yes, I can. He was not saying, I'm going to do X, Y, or Z. He was saying, together we can. The verb in that three-word slogan is can, which is a very hopeful word, promising the transformation and resolution. But the key word to me is we, which implies that Obama is not the hero, which would be PR, but that we are the heroes, the voters, and Obama is the wizard. He will help us transform ourselves. So that's a three-word story. Before we go to the next one, let's go back, Juliana. Oh, well. We've been seeing a lot of economical stories in just 4 words or even 3 words. Can we get a story in less than 3 words? Okay, now we'll move on. In a 2-word story, Apple's suite of products will transform you into a modern day Da Vinci. Think different. So what they're saying is, if you use our products, you, the hero, will become a modern day Da Vinci. So before we move on to the next one, Juliana, let me just add this note. When you're looking at a crisis, whether it be the climate crisis or the gun crisis in the US or the war in Eastern Europe or the pandemic, think about the people in your ecosystems who are on the front lines, who are doing the heroic work to make things better, and focus on them. They are the heroes, and you or your organization should be the wizard. So let's stay on this slide for a second. Stories can be told in any length in any media. We already saw a 2-word story with Apple. Can we get a word count lower than 2 words? Let's go ahead. Let's move on now. The answer is maybe, but here's another 2-word story. Malala. When Malala first got on Twitter, her first tweet was "Hi Twitter." At the time, that got 204,000 likes on that platform. And note, that was before Twitter had the extremely negative perception that it has now. This is just back this was 2015, 16, something like that. The audience can fill in the blanks on this story. We all know Malala, and she's a beloved international figure, someone who suffered greatly and overcame great obstacles, all in the name of peace and justice. In this tweet, she was connecting with the audience and emphasizing them as opposed to making the tweet about herself. So again, she's using the wizard formula here. She wasn't saying, hey, it's me, Malala. She's saying, hi, Twitter, and embracing the platform and embracing the users of the platform and again, I think that's why it went so viral. All right, so now we're going to go to questions and see if anybody wants to discuss anything that we've talked about so far a little bit more at length. Let's take 2 or 3 questions for the moment. Anyone have their hand raised? And if we don't have any volunteers, there's no problem. We'll just go on to the next section. But we'll give like a few seconds. Stephanie has raised her hand.
Thank you for the opportunity. I wanted to ask, in a situation where every organization is trying to be the wizard, in that situation, wouldn't it be like they are just trying to make us feel special when, I don't know if you get my question, but if everybody's trying to be the wizard and help us be heroes, is that not like some form of hypocrisy or something like that? Because in the end, they want something from us.
Absolutely. No, you're not incorrect, but I'm just showing you in these examples how the wizard formula works. The wizard formula works for advertising, and in the advertising world, there's always going to be a quid pro quo. There's rarely going to be a brand that says, hey, we've got this stuff we want you to buy, but there's always going to be a quid pro quo there. But I wanted to show you how the wizard formula works when you're doing storytelling, and it works for advertising, and it works for a lot of other formulas. So I just want you to see examples of how it can be executed rather than just as an idea that sits with you, but you weren't sure what it meant. So it definitely works on an advertising level, but it usually works on a in a storytelling level, and we'll take you through more examples of that as we go through the program. Sephora, do you have a question? Sephora, please unmute if you want. There you go.
Yeah, sorry. So, for the one word, sorry, I wanted to ask about the one word story because you didn't touch on it. I thought you were going to go into it. And then I'd also like to say something about the story basically. The wizard and the hero. I feel like the power given to the wizard is basically built, not based on what they actually tell you. For example, when you talk about Apple and you talk about Malala, there's a backstory that's supporting the two words that they used to portray their brand, if you get what I'm saying.
I apologize for there was a little audio issue, so I couldn't hear the last thing that you said about. I heard you mention Malala, and can you repeat that?
When you talked about Malala, you said what she said was hi Twitter, and then she got a lot of likes. And from my own perspective, I feel like the likes she got for her post was just because of what she's built on. Everyone knows who Malala is before she came into Twitter and said hi Twitter. So do you get my point, or can you hear me?
Yeah, no, I get your point. So absolutely, when a person of Malala's fame comes onto the platform, she probably would have gotten many likes, regardless of what she said. But I think what she did was she used. Sephora, if you can go back on mute now, just there. Thank you. What she did was she took a very humble wizard-like approach there, and that tweet went on to get many more likes than the screenshot that we got at the time was from the initial reaction. I don't know that she would have gotten as many likes if she had said, "Hey, it's me, everybody." If she had made the focus about herself. I think that because she made the focus on the community, it did even more. It got even more attention than it would have otherwise. So your point is correct that people knew who she was in advance, but I believe I'm really enjoying these emojis. I believe that she got more attention because she took a humble approach and made herself not the center of attention, but she made the Twitter community the center of attention. So that was the point there. So let's move on now to connecting to the SDGs. And now I'm going to turn things over to Juliana for the next section, and she will guide us through this part.
The SDGs, short for the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, are an international blueprint for sustainability to make sure that by 2030, no one on the planet gets left behind. They were created by the UN and endorsed unanimously. In fact, if one country had voted against their creation, the measure would have failed. And I'm pretty sure most of you know how hard it is to get anything passed unanimously, but it's particularly hard at the UN. So that's pretty incredible right there. The first 16 goals are each affiliated with a household name cause, for example, education, health, poverty, and climate. But the 17th goal, partnerships, is recognition by the international community that the public sector alone will never be able to raise the trillions of dollars necessary every year to achieve the first 16 goals. So in that sense, SDG 17 is an olive branch from governments to private sector and to civil society saying, help us get the word out. And by connecting this to international framework for social good, you or your organization can get 1, more visibility, and 2, more impact. At Brooklyn Story Lab, SDG 17 is our North Star and is our guiding principle. We partner with for-profits and nonprofits as long as the work in question is related to social good or helping to ensure that in some way no one on the planet gets left behind. And now we're going to go into a couple of case studies and I'm going to toss it back to Lance.
Thank you, Juliana. And we'll come back to Juliana in a second, but I just want to talk about a couple of our clients that we've worked with in storytelling and connecting to this international framework for social good. So our first client was an elephant translocation program in Southern Africa. A Fortune 500 company owned a number of nature reserves in South Africa and Botswana, which are the only two countries that allow for the private ownership of game. But one of these nature reserves, which is in South Africa near the Botswana and Zimbabwe border, had too many elephants for the ecosystem to handle. So elephants in the best case scenario are climate change mitigators, and they're a keystone species that are vital to the survival of ecosystems. They help ecosystems thrive. Too many in one ecosystem, they'll overgraze, they'll knock down trees, which are the large carbon storers, and they'll be harmful to an environment. But not enough elephants is also can stunt an ecosystem, because elephants have 17 or 18 traits that help ecosystems thrive. Their dung is particularly fertile, helping plants grow. Certain plants count on elephants to propagate because elephants disperse their seed far and wide in their very fertile dung. Elephants clear brush, creating animal highways. Elephants, as I mentioned, are climate change mitigators. They eat the small brush that competes with large trees to let the large trees, which store the most carbon, thrive. And up to 61 invertebrate creatures can live in an elephant footprint during the rainy season. Mozambique, and I'm not sure if we have anybody from Mozambique today or from near Mozambique. That was a country that had suffered a devastating civil war from 1977 to 1992. More than 1 million people died there, many of famine. So most every wildlife creature was consumed by a starving populace in Mozambique. All those critical things that elephants do for ecosystems were no longer being done in that country, and the parks that had thrived in Mozambique fell apart. So by moving 200 elephants from one ecosystem with too many to another with almost none, could save both. So this program that we worked on, more than 100 elephants were moved from South Africa to Mozambique before COVID brought the program to a halt. We ended up doing a documentary video series to capture the capture, and some of the photos that you're seeing here are photos of the elephants that we helped move. Our next client was Unleash, and some of you may have been part of that program. I know Simran, who first introduced us to the Millennium Campus Network. And Adrija, I'm not sure if you were also, because you're smiling. I see you smiling there.
Yeah, I'm smiling because Simran has just joined.
Oh, great. Hi, Simran.
Hey.
I didn't know this. I didn't know you were going to be on today, but I'm glad you're here to hear your name.
Yeah,
So Unleash is a global innovation lab that every year convenes 1,000 next generation talents in a different host country, has them form teams, and then each team comes up with an entrepreneurial solution to the SDGs. And again, I want to give a shout out to Simran for we met there and for all the great work that she's doing and for introducing us to this lovely community at MCN. We've also worked with the B Team, an international consortium of some of the most renowned private sector and civil society leaders in the world. The B Team is on a mission to reinvent the very idea of business, to align it more closely with social good and the SDGs, and to adhere to the triple bottom line: people, planet, and profit. So now I'm going to toss it back to Juliana to talk a little bit more about the SDGs.
So the SDGs are focused on the world's most intractable problems. All the SDGs in some way help to address the world's most pressing problems, the kind that, when exasperated or ignored, become crises. So in some way, when you're working to help advance the SDGs, you're prophetically helping to solve crises.
Do we have any questions on?
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead,
Sorry.
Juliana.
I was just going to say, any questions on the UN SDGs or other things?
We can take 1 or 2 questions for this section and then move on. If we see a hand raised, we'll stop. If we don't, we'll go on. And I don't see it up. There's Joseph. Joseph, go ahead and unmute.
Hey, so this is somewhat of a weird question, but I always wondered, is it possible that they can actually still add to the SDGs? Like, is it a possibility?
Is there a possibility they will add to the SDGs, you said?
Yes.
That's a good question. The history of the SDGs, and some of you may know this, originally they were called the MDGs, the Millennium Development Goals, not unlike the Millennium Campus Network. And they were started in 2000 by Ban Ki-moon. And the idea there were eight MDGs, and they were widely criticized by the Global South as being pandering to the Global South and being very colonialist and patronizing in their execution. So they had a 15-year shelf life from 2000 to 2015. And in 2013, they started working on the next iteration, which were the SDGs, which I think have been very, of course, they're not perfect, but I think that the SDGs have been widely praised by the international community as addressing a lot of the issues that need to be addressed. And as we said at the beginning of the program, scientists have warned us that if we don't correct the SDGs by 2030, we face the potentially irreversible negative consequences. So 2030, and the SDGs are also known as the 2030 Agenda. 2030 is the deadline for the SDGs, and that at that point, I assume there will be the next third round of something DGs. Maybe there'll be the renewable DG development goals or something like that. So Joseph, to answer your question, I think that we can add to the SDGs in the next iteration. I think one thing that's not covered by the SDGs is refugees. There's a lot of things that refugees face that are covered by other SDGs, but refugees as an entity is one category that I see has not been covered by the SDGs. But and then maybe when we get to the workshop portion of this of our time today, you guys can see if there are things you come up with that might be a better version of the SDGs. Let's move on just because I want to make sure we have enough time for everything else. The next topic that we're going to address today is what we call the editorial calendar, which is a date-based agenda for action to which most journalists and organizations pay requisite attention. And I can't remember who asked the question earlier, but somebody was talking about whether brands, it's hypocritical about brands to be using the wizard formula. And what I want to talk about here is how journalists, and a lot of us want to get attention from journalists, although at Brooklyn Story Lab, we say you can be your own journalist and be your own media company so you can get attention for yourself and not have to rely on journalists. Of course, it's always nice to get coverage from a media company. So if you want to connect to a media company, the editorial calendar is one way to do that. So social media platforms like Twitter, which we tend not to use anymore, and Facebook, but others as well, use algorithms to determine what stories are trending at a particular moment. Note that those trending stories count as trending because they are getting unusual attention at a particular time. If trending status was determined simply by what topics or keywords were getting the most usage, it might be all Taylor Swift or Justin Bieber or Beyonce or Real Madrid or Bayern Munich all the time, or Arsenal. I know we had an Arsenal fan before. Somebody mentioned Arsenal. It's not about what's getting the most mentions overall. It's about what's getting the most unusual attention. Therefore, it's actually possible to predict to some degree, on next slide here, what topics will be trending on social media and capture some of the audience that is hungrily searching for content about a particular topic on a given day. And using the editorial calendar is one way to take advantage of that, to tap into the viral wave. There are 4 essential buckets in the editorial calendar. Social awareness days, such as World Ocean Day or Earth Day or National Breast Cancer Awareness Month, things of that nature. Then there's tentpole events such as the Super Bowl or UN Week or Davos or COP30, which is coming up. Landmark anniversaries, and in 2020, we had the 50th anniversary of Earth Day, the 75th anniversary of the UN, things of that nature, and breaking news. such as a hurricane or a fire or the latest reports from Ukraine or Gaza. Next slide here. So social awareness days, let's talk about those first, are designed to call attention to global problems. So they're a great way to connect to the important work that you're doing with an audience that has specific curiosity about it and that are practically guaranteed to trend. So if you study the month ahead to know precisely when social awareness days will occur, many of which have tangential connections to crises, from ocean health to malaria to matters related to social justice, you can create content in advance that will be ready to connect with audiences on that day. So this is a strategy about when you're writing stories and want to get attention, how to do so in advance to know that next month, for example, we're practically in November now. So for December, the next month, World AIDS Day is December 1st. If you're doing anything related to HIV, there's also Rural Indigenous Women Day is in December. So if there's something that you work on that you want to get attention for, that there's going to be global attention on this in those days. Create this content now and then have it ready for then. That's the strategy for this one. Same with tentpole events. Davos, UNGA, COP30, those events are intended to address issues around which organizations like yours or individuals like you are doing critically important work. And with breaking news, depending on what you or your organization does, it should be relatively easy to find staff or others who are doing the important work that addresses the issues that have flared up because of a crisis. It could be that your organization feeds the hungry, or fights for climate justice, or works to level the playing field with regards to gender equality. In each of these instances, a crisis is an opportunity to showcase that important work and raise your visibility and deliver more impact. All right, questions? We have one more section to talk about before we get to the workshop portion. So let's see if we have one question or two questions here. Anybody raise their hands? And if not, we'll just get right into the next section. All right, let's get into the next section, which is what to write about. So now we're going to address what you can write about, which is often a stumbling block for people who want to get started. It's relatively simple. The best story ideas break down into two groups: hero stories and ideas about innovation. So for hero stories, these narratives capture a hero who has done one of the following: overcome great obstacles, achieved monumental success, suffered a harrowing, life-changing experience, or endured a noteworthy failure. Failure can be a really interesting way to address a story because people like to see others overcoming challenges, and know the vulnerability that's evident in a story about failure is very appealing. The other kind of stories that people like to that always make for the other ideas that always make for good stories are about ideas and innovation. These narratives focus on game-changing thoughts. So we have what are good examples of ideas and innovation? Let's go to the next slide here. We have important discoveries, relevant observations, disruptive breakthroughs, or time or money-saving improvements. So let's look at two more case studies from Unleashed that fall under the latter category. There's not a slide for this. I'm just going to tell you about these. There was an African farmer who used poultry manure to produce cheap renewable biogas systems. There's another African innovator who turned millions of tons of food waste into a high-value food, mushrooms. So again, those are great story ideas based on SDG-related innovations and solutions. So this is the last opportunity to ask a question before we get to the workshop. Let's take one or two questions if we have them. Otherwise, we can just get right to the workshop. And Victor. We'll take one question from Victor and then one question from Bernard, and then we'll move on to the workshop and we'll save other questions for later, okay? Victor, go ahead.
Okay. Living in countries where people might not really pay attention to the SDGs or care about how things like this should be done? How do we create content or stories that would actually draw people's attention towards it?
Can you give me an example of that, Victor? And let me note that even if you're based in a country that, as you say, is not paying attention to the SDGs, if you're doing something that's interesting to somebody in the United States or Denmark or Italy or Egypt, then you can still get attention in that manner. So it doesn't necessarily matter if your own country is not paying attention, because if you want to get media attention or donations or grants or something of that nature, it's I'm not saying it's unimportant if what's happening in your country, but it's not the only game in town if you're looking for media attention or funding. Bernard, let's hear from Bernard, and then we'll move on to the workshop. I'm sorry, Joyce. We'll come back to you for the next section. Go ahead, Bernard.
Am I audible?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, so my question is, when the UN were designing the sustainable goals, I wanted to know, like, let's say something like to eradicate poverty or maybe to build good cities. Does storytelling, did they put like storytelling as part of like working on the goal? So because like for me, I think it's kind of physical. Like if I want to eradicate poverty, maybe I donate food. So my question is, can I do it through storytelling in a way? Maybe if I want, maybe I'm working on something kind of like, let's say safe cities, or maybe employment, like do a story maybe on LinkedIn or maybe on any socials. Does it count as part of working on the SDGs?
Thank you for that question, Bernard. And no, storytelling is not officially part of the SDGs, but what we're saying is that if you can create stories about the work that you're doing, you can get attention and connect your work to the SDGs so that people on the outside can see the great work that you're doing and learn more about it and give you attention in some way, whether that's financing, whether that's grants, whether that's media attention that brings more visibility to your work to help you get better impact. So what we're trying to do today is show that the power of storytelling is a tool in your arsenal that can help you get more, one, visibility, and two, impact. So I think that's what we're trying to do here. So now let's move into the next section, which is the workshop section. So we're going to have Adrija is going to help execute this. We're going to have you gather into teams, and you'll each go into breakout rooms of about 10 or more people. And together you can sketch out a draft of a new story or multiple stories if you like that is relevant to let's come up with one overarching theme, which is come up with something that's relevant to COP30. There should be a clear definition of the following. And this can come from your own work. And when you go into breakout rooms, you're going to be meeting up with other of your fellow MCN students or fellows. And then try to come up with something that has a hero, a conflict, and a resolution as part of a formula. And then we can help develop that story. And this is just an exercise, so I don't want anyone to feel any undue pressure here. This should be a fun exercise. But when you get assigned to a breakout room, and Juliana and I will visit each of the breakout rooms. We'll try to visit each of the breakout rooms for a couple of minutes each. So we'll spend the next 15 minutes or so. Try to come up with a story that one of you suggests, and try to identify a hero. And it could even be a fictional hero if you think that would be easier. But I just want everyone to participate in the exercise. And then after the breakout rooms of about 15 minutes, we'll come back here and share some of those stories with the rest of the group. All right. So let's do maybe 12 minutes in the breakout room. That'll take us to 11:37. That'll give us 25 minutes to hear some of those stories.
Everybody should be seeing a prompt to join a breakout room right about now.
And Juliana and maybe Adrija and Simran, because Juliana and I can't get to each room, will maybe the four of us could split things up and just visit a room and just make sure that they're and Juliana for this part, just go in, see if they're having any issues, and if they have any questions about how to do them, remind them that it's not it's we don't want to we don't put a lot of pressure on them. We want them just to have fun with this, but it can be a fictional situation. But maybe one person in the breakout room has a story that they can all run with together. I think everybody should be back now. How was that for everyone? Let's see some emojis. A half thumbs up, some hearts, some exploding thumbs up, some applause, some horns, some laughing. Good. It looks like everyone had a good time. And again, I don't want everyone to feel pressure from this. I think this should just be a fun exercise. And normally what would happen is we'd have a lot more time to go through the, normally when we do these storytelling seminars, we have about an hour for the breakout room and an hour for presentations, but we're trying to do an expedited version today. So I don't want anyone to feel badly or feel like they didn't get the exercise. But again, the main idea here is just to get us a working knowledge of how to tell a story that can get you some more attention for all the great work that you're doing. And before we move on, let me just remind everyone here, follow me, follow Juliana on LinkedIn, hook up with us there so you can get more information later. We would love to, I put our stuff, I put our links, I put my link in the chat. Juliana can put her link in the chat for LinkedIn. And that way you can always reach out to us and use us as resources going forward. We'd love to help you and be there for you so that you can learn more about how to do this kind of work. So let's see if we can hear from some of the breakout rooms. Sunday, I know that you've been waiting, so let's hear from Sunday.
Yes, thank you very much. My name is Sunday. Just for purposes of records, it's an honor to hear from my very own Dorothy. Both of us are from Akwa University, Uganda.
Oh,
and
nice.
I was really touched. Yeah, I was really touched to hear about the story because I've met her personally, but I've never seen any aspect of it. She's always a jolly person. Yeah, so it was kind of shocking. I was almost putting down my hand to cry, but I had to keep pushing on. Yeah, thank you very much. Yes,
I agree. I agree with you.
Yes. Yeah, personally, I was from group 6. Yeah, our group tried to come up with a story, basically about a group of passionate individuals. That's like our team. That's group 6 members who came together with a shared dream of making a difference through our work. Let's say we're working together in a company like Millennium Fellowship. Yeah. Then in the beginning, things didn't go as smoothly as we hoped. We had the courage, but not the structure. Communication wasn't clear. Our resources were limited, and at times it felt like everyone was working hard, yet moving in different directions. The progress was slow and honestly a bit discouraging, but instead of giving up, we took a step back and asked ourselves what needed to be changed. We decided to start meeting oftenly, not just to discuss tasks, but to listen to one another, share ideas, and align our goals. We set clear targets, divided responsibilities based on strength, and build trust within the team. As we kept going, something beautiful began to happen. The energy shifted, collaboration replaced confusion, and every small win motivated us to push further in our work. Over time, we became more united, more confident, and more productive than ever before. The real transformation wasn't just in the results we achieved, it was in how we learned to work together. We realized that true progress comes from unity, open communication, and consistency. What was what was once felt like a challenge became our greatest lesson, that when people come together with purpose and trust, they truly turn challenges into growth and impact. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Sunday. That's really beautiful. Let's hear from the next person in order on my list is Safura. And let's try to keep. We'll go. The entire seminar is supposed to end in 2 minutes, but let's go another 15 minutes longer. And let's try to hear from people in about as quick as you can. Like let's give 2-minute presentations so that we can hear from as many people as possible. So Sephora, let's see if we can go for 2 minutes.
Okay, hi guys. I'm from room 10. We're supposed to speak together as a group, but I can't get in touch with the rest of my group members. So our story is based on a Nigerian girl from northern Nigeria. Her name is Aisha. So this is a very creative story. It is not a true story, but the circumstances are based on events that probably happened to people, or lots of people in Nigeria. So Aisha is a young girl. She goes to school. She's very hardworking, and she loves to help around the house. But the problem is that Aisha is overwhelmed with work at home because she is a caregiver. She works and takes care of her grandfather, and we called him Baba. So that is our hero, basically. So the conflict here is that taking care of an old person or generally caregiving, it is a bit overwhelming, especially for a young person. But then she feels like she has a responsibility to her grandparents, she has a responsibility to her parents, so she keeps on pushing. So we now come to keeps on pushing. She tries her very best to take care of her grandfather, but it is not exactly easy. And sometimes we can say her grandfather ends up being neglected since she cannot give him the proper care that he needs. That's the conflict. And to conclude, in Nigeria, the problem here in Nigeria is that people don't support taking your family or your loved ones to an elderly home because they feel like you're abandoning that person and you are just not giving them the proper care when they took care of you. When you were young, they took care of you, and now they've reached a stage in their life where you have to give back to them. So people are against the idea of taking them to an elderly home. So for the resolution, she goes for an outreach. Just suddenly her friend comes and she's like, "Oh, this is good for you." So she goes for this outreach. The outreach is organized by an organization. It's called the SAGE Project, which is Senior Advancement in Geriatric Education. And this outreach basically provided crucial education about older people. It talked about how to take care of them properly, and it also advocated, yeah, for proper care for the elderly. In that same program, she got to understand that taking your loved one to an elderly home might be more beneficial than people tend to say. And it is not a way of giving up on them. Rather, it's a way of exposing them to things that they actually need since they get to meet proper healthcare professionals and proper caregivers that can give them the things that they need. So for transformation, Aisha basically transformed from an isolated girl that was trying to juggle things that to some extent were above her age to someone that was empowered, knowledgeable, and someone that even started to advocate for proper geriatric care in Nigeria, and her family became more balanced, and she created a system that actually helped everyone. And I would say that supports SDG 10, which is goal of dignity for all ages. Thank you.
Thank you,
I
Sephora.
don't
That's
know.
great.
Yeah, that's all.
That's a lovely example, and I think it's very applicable to all countries. And someone asked earlier if there was going to be an expansion of other SDGs, and I think that elder care could fall into one of those scenarios where that's another SDG that is not really covered per se by the rest of the SDG. So I love that example. I love the transformation and how applicable that is to other places. Let's go to Muhammad.
Hi, my name is Mohammad Yahya, and the story I'm gonna share is a real one. It's not a fictional. It happened, and if you're from Pakistan, you might have some kind of information about that. The story is about a medical student. I'm not using the real name. Her name was Sarah. Last year in March, she was going through a lot of mental health crisis, but in our country people say, especially our parents say, ये तुम्हारे दिमाग का मसला है यानी कि it's all in your head, ये तुम्हारे दिमाग में है. So that's the phrase which is being used around everybody. So she was a medical student and she faced a lot of problems. One day, one of the professors called her name and asked a question in front of a whole class. She couldn't answer it, and he slapped her on the face in front of a whole class. If you are from Pakistan, you know it's a very common occurrence in
Wow.
universities, and teachers can slap you, they can turn off the AC, they can turn off the fans. And that particular professor was from community medicine. I'm not also going to use his name. And then the very next day the girl committed suicide. And
Oh,
she was my senior. And university tried to play it like down to tune down this incident, but students started protesting the very next morning. The girl's mother stood beside us. She was in front line in the protest with us. And the demands we put in front of the chairman of the institute was no teacher should be allowed to uh, physically abuse or harm any children. And our demands were accepted. And so the multiple changes have been done. And we now also have a mental health day last year and this year too, in October. And we have a committee where we can go for free to meet our like the to share our problems of mental health with the psychologists and psychiatrists of our institute.
thank you, Mohammed. I'm going to stop you there, and you have a you have a hero. You certainly have you certainly have a transformation. You have a conflict, and what a terrible thing that that person went through. Um, there's no and you said no teacher should be allowed to physically harm another student, but I think no teacher should be allowed to humiliate another a student, because that's not what people are going to university for. They're going there to learn, not to be fodder for someone to go through such a terrible crisis like that. So thank you for sharing that, and let's hear from Deborah Bello.
Good day, everyone. My name is Bella Deborah, and the story I'll be sharing is also a personal one. So, in my community, we face an issue of flooding due to improper waste management as a
Where are you
community.
where are you from? Where are you from? Just let
I'm
us know
sorry,
where you're from.
Nigeria. So sorry,
Okay,
Nigeria. It's
no
a
problem.
common occurrence for flooding due to improper waste management. And some group of people stepped up to do something about it. And first of all, it started with sensitization, educating the community members on how this is actually affecting their community in cases of flooding. And last year or last 2 years, we experienced a death in our community because of the river was flooded, and I think the person mistakenly entered into the river and died. And also, we also had issues of communicable diseases due to the dirt that accumulated in the river. So basically, this hero stepped up and decided to do something about it. And the first of us started with sensitization, educating their members on what improper waste management has actually caused to their community. And then after which they organized cleanups and cleanup drives where they cleaned their community once or twice a week. And then after which they also collaborated with organizations, waste management associations in their environment that could also assist them in cleaning up. And from there, it became like a well-known or an activity done not just for not just to make their environment a better place, but an activity that can promote wellness, can promote unity in their community. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. And now let's hear from somebody from a different region. Do we have anybody from? We've heard from a couple people from Uganda, a couple people from Nigeria, one person from Pakistan. I want to hear from as many people as possible, but do we have anybody who's from a different place than those folks? Let's go to Mujidat. Mujidat, can you do you want to take yourself off mute?
Yes. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
I'm actually from Nigeria.
That's okay. That's okay.
Okay.
Go ahead. Share your story. I don't want to keep you from sharing your story, but let's
Okay,
but other
so
folks who've raised your hand, let's see if we hear from other places. But go
okay,
ahead, Mujidat.
okay. So I was in room 7, and our story is about a society. We gave the society the name Idao, and in that society there is this very curious student. His name is Tom. He studies chemical engineering in university. So what happens in that community is that every single day when Tom goes through the street, he sees that there is a daily destruction of trees. Like literally, trees are cut down every single day to go into the manufacturing of other things. And also, we see that there's a large number of vehicles in the streets, certain times not necessary to be there, and they cause a lot of carbon emission, they cause smoke and all these kind of things. He also has a friend who basically fell sick because of this issue. So Tom sees it as an issue and decided to create a movement. He created the Green Movement. He created this with some help from his colleague at the university. We had other character, I've forgotten her name. She's a girl. So basically Tom is the evil here. So the issue is that this is a community, like say a very, should I call it third world country, but a community that doesn't really believe in the idea of preserving the earth. So there is a lot of issues with trying to to push the movement. But regardless, Tom does the best he can. He pushes advocacy. He goes out even to the local communities. Oh, why should you preserve your trees? Why should you avoid smoke emission? What caused this and that? So even though it began as a very rocky movement, Tom was able to push the movement to a big stage and then reduce the amount of activities that affected climate change in the society. So yeah, that's the story.
That's wonderful, and it goes to show how resilience is so important in preventing the negative impacts of climate change and planting trees and things of that nature. Being able to plan can really have such a positive effect. So thank you for sharing that one. Let's go to Tasneem. Hello,
Hi,
Tasneem.
I'm Tasneem Hafedan. I was in room 4, and our story is actually about a girl. It's not a real character, but I'm pretty sure that the struggle is real. So our hero is named Amal. She's a young engineer. She lived in a town in the desert, and Amal watched her town's oasis shrink year after year. One night, she dreamed the water was speaking. I'm almost gone. Save me. That's what the oasis was telling her in her dream. She didn't disappear or despair. She flew to the cop, gather bold ideas, mirrors to catch rain, recycle water gardens, and ways to invest every precious drop. Back home, she didn't work alone. Amal reached out to nearby village, borrowed tools, sharing knowledge, and pulling water wisely. Together, they learned to capture, recycle, and grow their water like an investment. Slowly, the oasis stirred, flowers bloomed, and life returned. Amal didn't just use water, she sparked a movement, proving that a desert, like a community, can breathe again when we invest in it wisely. So that was our story. It was a simple idea. We didn't want to go very deep or very complicated. So that's it. Thank you.
And Tasneem, where are you from?
I'm from Libya.
Libya. Okay, thank you. That was very poetically told too. I really enjoyed that.
Thank you.
Let's hear from Deng. And if you've already spoken, please lower your hand so I can see other folks. Thank you.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes, Deng.
All right, my story is gonna be personal, and I like sharing it. And I think if you guys are hearing me, then I will start.
We can hear, yes.
Yeah, I'm from South Sudan, the youngest nation in the world, and a country that has been traumatized by political injustice, wars. When I was 14 years, the war broke out in 2013, where I and my single mom were displaced to the refugee camp in Uganda. My single mom tried her best to put us in the school where we study under the trees, and we keep pushing. She tried her best to put us into the school. Reaching my secondary school, I was able to graduate at my high school, and without resources, I keep looking down, looking at my mom, and seeing where I can go to school. Unfortunately, I lost her, and I remain with my two siblings, making me to be the guidance and the father and the mother at the same time. This give me opportunity to learn, to struggle, and to support them in a refugee camp. But with the resilience and the struggle, I was able to find the fear who was in Rwanda and was under Mastercard Foundation scholarship. Getting a peer helped me, helped to mentor me, coach me on how I can apply, and I was able to get a Mastercard Foundation scholarship at African Leadership University to pursue software engineering. But looking back at the camp, I found that I left many of the youth who were with the same stories. This helped me to come up with the solution that was addressing the SDG 4, which is quality education. And since I was facing the problem of lack of access to education, it made me to come up with the organization called African Learning Link, a web-based application which was tackling the problem of access to education by focusing on using my skill as a software engineer to develop a web-based application that will centralize mentorship and opportunities and admission across the universities in Africa in order to help the underprivileged who are in underrepresented communities and refugee camps to assess opportunities and admission in one place with the support of the peers who will support them on how they can be able to apply and be able to be helped like me and be able to be elevated to be leaders like the way I am today. Thank you, and that was a bit summary of the story, but the story is long. Thank you.
Dang, thank you so much for sharing that. I loved hearing about overcoming adversity like so many of you have, and so many of these stories, they're really beautifully told. All right. We're just about out of time. I want to make sure, I want to, I see four more people with their hand raised. If we can get very, very quick stories from the four of you, and I hate to do this, but if you can keep it to about a minute long, if you think you could do that, great. Let's try with Bernard first.
Okay, thank you. Mine is similar to Deng's story. So it's actually a true story. I'm from Kenya. So I was born in Kibera. It's the largest slum. So actually, I'll try and summarize it. So you see, in Kibera, people don't also value education that much. So I think our struggle started when our dad passed. That was back in 2002. We struggled a bit with our mom. Then now the real challenge starts when my mom passed away. That was in 2014. I was still in high school, but somehow we managed, and think through God's grace, I managed to get a scholarship for Mastercard, and I'm actually happy. I'm in the university, and yeah, in summary, that is also my story. Just hope for the best in future. Yeah.
Oh my goodness, thank you. And I want everyone here, Bernard and Deng and Dorothy, Nabira, all of you who've spoken, please connect with us on LinkedIn so we could see how we could help you in other ways and tell your story to a larger audience. And all of you, please connect with us so that we can help you figure out how to get more attention for the great work that you're doing and some of the things that you've gone through, because we're such cheerleaders for all of you. We love what you're doing. I see Joyce. Let's get if you can go very quickly, if you don't mind, Joyce, because we have just a couple of minutes left.
Okay, hi, my name is Joyce. I study at the Technical University of Kenya, pursuing journalism and mass communication, and I'll be as brief as I can. Okay, so my story is about, it's a true story about children in a rural public school. So I used to I used to be there, but somehow, well, I used to be there. So when I could go home for holidays, I always see them go to school with no shoes on, with no sweaters on. So I decided when we started this millennium, I decided to go home and visit the schools, and I did. Wow, it was. Let me just what I saw. Okay, it was so bad. Like children, they come to school like they haven't eaten. Okay, it's a village school, so it's really let's just say there's a lot of poverty there. Well, I grew there, so I know. So I identified that, and I sought consent from the teachers and the head teachers, and I recorded. I recorded how they had no shoes, how they were hungry, and how the windows were broken, and I posted it on my TikTok, and people actually, that's how I raised awareness, and that's how I raised funds. Through that platform, people came and said, we could help with this. So I came up with the project where I took milk. I went to school. I had a session with them. I talked to them and told them that I was here too, and I managed to get to university. So this, whatever you're facing, should not be a challenge or should not hinder you from fulfilling your dreams. I was here. So I told them that I'll always be back, and I supplied milk to, I think, 4 schools in my community, and I gave them pens written on my project name. And okay, I know that doesn't really do a lot, but I'd say that it strengthened my resolve, and I really hope that these heroes of mine, I'd say my heroes are those people from online who supported me with the funds. I'm hoping that the next year when they open schools, I'll connect with them again so that we can try to create a proper meal plan so that children could really stay in school like the whole time, because most of them weren't in school on that day. So if we help create a meal plan for them, for maybe even just for a term, for a start, because I believe change starts small. Yeah, so my heroes are the people from online, and I really didn't think they could really help that much, but I appreciate them. Yeah, so that's my story.
Thank you. And Joyce, which country was that from? Which country did this take place?
I'm from Kenya.
From Kenya. Thank you, Joyce.
Yeah.
Thank you. You know, every little bit does help. And again, a lot of times when you're thinking about transformation and the work that you're doing, it's important. Don't think in terms of statistics, because trying to change communities one community trying to change the world one community at a time, you do what you can, and scaling comes later. Doing the important work first, scaling comes later, and then if you're able to successfully call attention to the work that you're doing, then you can get scale through storytelling. Let's do one more, and I don't want to leave anyone out. I think Mujidi, we did hear from you earlier, so let me go to Ebenezer, and then we're going to conclude the work, and everyone else can reach out to me or Juliana on LinkedIn so that we can hear from all of you at some point. But let's go with Ebenezer for the last word.
Okay, hello everyone. Thank you for giving me the chance. I am Ebenezer Tango Pai from Bamenda, Cameroon. So my story is actually a real life story which goes with uh, high school students who get into the university without having proper knowledge of what they need to do. So I came to notice that some students finally end up leaving the university with more than 3 degrees, spending almost 6 years in the university, or sometimes they jump from one department to another, trying to find purpose, trying to find something they can do that will align with their dream. And all these always come as a result of not having good career guidance and mentorship during their secondary school and high school days. So what I actually got into the SDD4, which is quality education, which I got into mentoring these students when they are in high school on how they can choose a good career path when they get into the university, so they don't waste their time studying what is not necessary. And equally, I added the personal development. That's they develop themselves personally and being able to set realistic goals, goal setting techniques, which makes them productive during their school days, making them choosing careers that they will not have to waste time studying. Maybe some go and they're doing banking this year. Next year, they find out that it's not necessary for them. They start going in maybe into computer engineering. At the end of the day, they get to waste their time a lot. So that's just the story I have in my community, and I'm actually trying to get it, uh, get over it by providing them with quality education and good career mentorship. Thank you very much.
And Ebenezer, you said you were from, did you say Cameroon?
Yeah, I'm from Bamenda, Cameroon, studying at the University of Bamenda.
Excellent. Okay. And as I mentioned, my favorite team is Philadelphia 76ers with Joel Embiid from your country. So, all right, let's conclude now. Going back to the presentation. In terms of in the conclusion here, in a crisis, and again, we've been talking a lot about crisis today. Good editors at media companies will actively look to assign stories about heroes and victims. So by being in charge of your own media company, you can create content that reaches news consumers directly, particularly in times of crisis when natural human interest in such a story peaks. And we've already heard from people today about situations where there was a crisis with flooding, or an individual crisis related to mental health, or an individual crisis where children didn't have shoes and couldn't get enough to eat. So these are all beautiful examples of great storytelling, and you can take action by telling these stories to get resolutions to these issues. Also note that in times of crisis, the power of social good can be a feel-good elixir to help combat the impressively negative storylines. So a story about the good work that someone in your organization or that you yourself are doing to combat the negative aspect or the negative impact of a crisis can provide joy and hope to readers who are dumbstruck by an awful situation, and even be a sought after shareable asset that makes them feel better to both read and pass along to go viral. So that's where we are. I want to, here's a QR code for LinkedIn. Please reach out to us. We would love to stay connected with all of you. I want to thank Simran for introducing us to the team, Adrija for doing such a great job behind the scenes and in front of the camera as well, and some of our new friends from MCN today, and all of you. And again, normally this is a longer. Normally, this is a longer session, so we get to spend more time. But again, we had an abbreviated session today, so I want to make sure that everybody feels they got something useful out of it. But again, if you have questions, please follow up on with us individually, and we look forward to doing this again at some point. Drija, I don't know if you or Simran want to have the last word here.
Oh, thanks so much, Lance. Thanks so much, Juliana. Thank you so much for putting this all together for our Millennium Fellowship class of 2025. I really appreciate it as all of them work on their social impact projects. It's important that they also learn to tell the story of social impact. So we are truly, deeply grateful to you, to Juliana, and everybody at Brooklyn Story Lab. For Millennium Fellows, thank you all so much for joining us today. For the upcoming global webinars and Saturday sessions, keep an eye out on your inbox for more details, and we will see you for the next sessions very soon. And all the very best for your fellowship and your project. Bye bye. Stay safe.
Bye, everyone.
Everyone.